this work is joint work with my PhD student Yannis Papachristos. He's almost completed 2 years his study, and his thesis will be in general in the area of server allocation in tandem systems. Actually, as you see, I'm with the mechanical engineering department, which has an industrial engineering division, production management. So the work we do is usually related to production and services in general. So in his thesis, as I said, he's looking at production lines. Of course, in the general case, we have many stages of production. We're going to look at heuristics, do some simulations for performance evaluations and things like that. But other than that, we are also looking into some toy problems with 2 stages, hoping to characterize the structure of the optimal policy. So the model we are going to study and I'm going to talk about, is a 2-stage queuing system. We have one dedicated server in each queue and one server that is shared by the queues. It's a flexible server that can go back and forth. Okay. And we study properties of optimal policies, optimal allocation policies. My talk will consist of 2 parts. The first, we look at preemptive policies, and the second part, we look at non-preemptive policies. And also we'll present some properties of optimal policies and some numerical results that illustrates things that we haven't been able to show. That makes this simple system, as I said before. We have arrivals, then after service in station 1, jobs go to station 2 and then leave the system. And as I said, we have 2 servers, server 1 attending station 1, server 2 attending station 2, and a flexible server that is a cross-trained server for both stations. Okay, so we assume Poisson arrivals with rate lambda, and also or clearing systems. Okay, we look at those 2 cases. Of course, for clearing systems where you have an initial number of jobs and you just wait until they finish, it's easier to get results. And also we assume exponential processing times. Now the rates of these exponential processing times are nu I for the dedicated servers, nu 1 and nu 2, okay, and mu I for the flexible server when it's in station I. And we also assume that each job incurs holding costs at rate hi, so linear holding costs at hi. And the objective of the work is to characterize policies that minimize the expected holding cost in this case. Of course, for the clearing system, just the expected holding cost until the system is cleared. For systems with arrivals, discounted cost and average costs per unit time. Now, we start with the part that we assume preemptive policies. This is easier to model because at each arrival or service completion, servers can be reassigned. Okay. And there has been a lot of work in this area before. Most of work was on the clearing systems. And usually it was assumed that the servers can collaborate fully. So when you have one job and you can have the 2 servers working on that same job, and the service rate would be the sum of the individual service rates, nu I plus mu I. And also it was assumed that assumed non-idling policies. So whether it was optimal or not, then we assumed that the servers would always work in previous work. So in this setting, the decisions that had to be made were to be chosen between 2, just where to assign the flexible server, station 1 or station 2. And what has been shown is that the optimal policy is characterized by switching curve. So the more jobs you have in station 2, the more incentive you have to assign the flexible server in station 2. So there is the first paper that dealt with that was by Farrar back in '93. It showed that there exists a threshold that depends on the number of jobs in station 1. So when the number of jobs in station 2 exceeds this threshold, then the flexible server goes there. Otherwise in station 1. And that was later extended in various directions. Wu, Lewis, and Witz at 2006 They proved similar results where servers were unreliable. You have failures and repairs. I had done some work with operating costs. So when a server worked instead of the holding, or not instead, but on top of holding costs, you had to pay an operating cost that depended on the duration of the service. So in that work, if I remember well, I had a condition under which idling policies, non-idling policies were optimal, and then it was the same setting. And all this, the results were for clearing systems. There was a work by Wood, Down and Lewis, 2008, where they considered systems with arrivals, and they showed this threshold type optimal policy when there is no dedicated server in the first stage. There were problems with the proof if you have a dedicated server in the first stage. So now our assumption, we relaxed the constraints. So in our model, we allowed idling. And also, instead of full collaboration, we assumed a partial collaboration of the servers when they are on the same job. In plain words, when they are on the same job, they still can collaborate, but the service rate would be smaller than the sum of the two service rates. Okay. So we assume at station I service rate nu I plus Ci. So nu I is the service rate of the dedicated server, so we add a term Ci, which is less than mu I, which is the service rate of the flexible server if it works alone, so that partial collaboration is less effective than full collaboration. And also the sum mu I plus Xi is greater than mu I, so that that says that when you have two servers together, they work faster than one alone. So the model is not that different from the full collaboration, okay? But I thought it would be tractable for my student to start working and get familiar with Markov decision processes, things like that. Okay, so we formulate, since we have exponential and service times, I'll give you the problem formulation for clearing systems. I'll talk mostly about clearing systems because there we have most results. So you have a Markov decision process. The state is x1, x2, the number of jobs in the two stations. And also we assume that the sum of all the service rates is 1 by performing uniformization. That makes the proofs easier, actually. And then for each state x1, x2, we denote by A of x1, x2 the set of feasible service rates there. What can be assigned to each station, so that basically you don't want the flexible server to work simultaneously in both. Okay. And by V x1, x2 is the minimum expected cost from state x1, x2. This is pretty straightforward. So the optimality equation has this simple form. We have the holding cost for the first time period. And then, depending on the service rates rho 1 or rho 2 being chosen for each station, we have the cost to go from there. And this is given here. So this term corresponds to a service completion in station 1. So we go to state x minus 1, x1 minus 1, x2 plus 1. This term corresponds to a service completion in station 2, and this term is a fictitious transition to the same state. So since we have allowed for idling, we have a lot of combinations of allocations that we can have. Okay. So, but this can be reduced. So the first result says basically that in station 2, there's nothing to gain by idling. You want to push out the jobs. Okay? So you can show that for a given allocation in station 1, this cost is minimizing by maximizing the allocation in station 2, which means that at least the dedicated server in station 2 should always work there. Now for station 1, let me first say that we define this f of x1, x2. This is what we gain by having a job leaving station 1. Okay. So what we can show easily is that if this function f is is not negative, then the cost is minimized by maximizing the allocation in station 1. Otherwise, we want to minimize the allocation in station 1, basically assign nobody there. So nothing in the middle can be optimal. Either you put as many resources as you can in station 1 or no resources. And then you can show that this function f, when h1 is greater than or equal to h2, is not negative, which is reasonable because then if it's more expensive to have jobs in station 1, you want to send them to station 2. So if we assume that h1 is greater than or equal to h2, we have again a simple model where the decision to be made is where to assign the flexible server, because both servers, the dedicated servers, work. So it's almost the same as the full collaboration model, because the only difference is when you have one job in a queue. If you have more than one job, then you have each server work in a different job, so you have the additive model of the full collaboration. So surprisingly, maybe not surprising, but anyway, even though this model is very little different from the full collaboration model, it turned out to be much more difficult to analyze technically. And also, we have shown that the structure of the optimal policy in certain cases is not the same as the optimal policy for the non-collaborative servers, which we will show by examples later. So the main result is theorem 1 just states that there is a threshold that is optimal. So for each number of jobs in station 1, there exists a threshold T such that if the number of jobs in station 2 is greater than that, you assign the flexible server there, otherwise to station 1. And moreover, we have this result here about the slope of this switching curve, which we prove that it's at least -1. Actually, the switching curve in most cases turns out to be not decreasing, but that's what we're able to show. So that means that there is a switching curve that characterizes the optimal policy, and this result about the slope says that if at a certain state the optimal policy has assigned the flexible server to station 2, and then you have a job joining from station 1, then the optimal policy keeps the server there, because you have one more job in station 1, one less in station 2, one less in station 1. So that's reasonable. Okay. So here we also have two conditions under which we prove this result. The first condition is that the dedicated server in station 2 is faster, or rather not slower than the flexible server there. And then we have this condition μ1 greater than μ2. Both came up when trying to prove the result. Okay, the first one is reasonable because you can say that a server that specializes is faster than the flexible server who is trained to do both works. Okay. The second one is just arbitrary. I'll come back to those later. I'll talk about the proof first. Just a sketch, right? So to prove the results, we define some decision functions. A decision function is just what you gain by assigning a flexible server to station 1. It turns out that for when the jobs are at least 2 in both stations, this d of x1, x2 is the decision function. In the other cases, is slightly different because we have partial corroboration there. So, for example, if you have one job in station 1, instead of the μ1 here, you have the x1 here, because then if you assign the flexible server there, you have additional service of x1 and so on. Okay. So the key thing in this proof is to derive some expressions for the decision functions instead of working with the value function, because this simplifies the proof, and work with the decision function directly. Actually, Farrar in the first paper had adopted this method. So for example, I give you for x1, x2 greater than or equal to 3, this is an expression for decision function d. So In this case, which is the more general case, where no partial collaboration is involved, this equation has only function d in there. If we had full collaboration, we have just this equation for any x1, x2, and we could work with that. You can perform induction on x1, x2 and show what you want to show. However, in our case, when x1, x2 are less than these values, these decision functions appear all together. They interact, so that makes the problem difficult in its analysis. So based on this equation, these expressions and the others that I'm not showing, actually we are showing the following properties. First, that this decision function is decreasing in x2, okay, which means that if it ever becomes negative, it will stay negative, which indicates the existence of the threshold. The second property here is actually that the limit goes to minus infinity, so that in fact it becomes negative. Okay. So the first two, they say that there exists a threshold, and this third property has to do with the slope. Okay. So if we have this, if dx1, x2 is positive, and we go diagonally down and right, then it remains positive. So that's sufficient to show that the slope is greater than -1, greater than or equal to -1. So that's the, I have to go back, okay. So let me talk a little bit about these conditions here. So the question was, after we did the proof, if these properties are still valid without these conditions. Because I said the conditions came up in the proofs, okay. So for that purpose, we did some numerical testing. We tested tens of thousands of cases because it's very easy computation. You have a clearing system. By just, we use a random number generator to create values for the parameters and checked what happened. So what we saw is that the existence of the threshold was always, we never found any case that this was not true. But we found cases where the slope was less than -1. And basically this happened when both of these conditions were violated. If just one was violated, we didn't find any case for that. And I just have a numerical example. I mean, in this case, you see this switching curve. So when you are, for example, at this point, when you have 3 jobs in each queue, the optimal policy assigns the server to Q2. If you go to 2 and 4, if a job comes from Q1, then we have a point in here, so the optimal policy assigns the server to Q1. So that's contradicts the result of the theorem. It's also, yes?
Is the policy unique?
The policy?
Policy unique?
Yes. I see maybe there were some, yeah, we checked the numbers. You mean, but maybe in some cases there was a tie and, no, we checked it, but in general, since it's very highly unlikely to have a tie because with all these computations, what you get is, real numbers. So if you, okay, it must be a coincidence of very low probability to have a tie. But just to make sure, we checked this. And also, we checked for each point the difference between the two policies, the two possible assignments, if it was large enough, because sometimes, I don't know about numerical analysis, but sometimes there are round-off errors and then propagate that maybe this was the case. But if I remember well, we found that they were different on the second digit, so it's probably correct. So that was the result when we have the simple model where the decision is where to assign the flexible server. Now, in cases you had H1 less than H2, we only got there you have the idling option as well in there. So you cannot use a decision function to deal with that because you don't compare two things, you compare at least 3. So there, I don't have any slides on that, but we had some asymptotic results only, that when the number of jobs in station 2 becomes large, then you shut down station 1, which is reasonable to show. Okay. And we also had some results for the case with arrivals, some asymptotic results, and an extension of already existing results for full collaboration. So, how's my time? Okay, doing well. So then, here we have some special cases that we looked at. When we had one dedicated server in HQ, so we could prove that the threshold, the existence of the threshold, the same result as before. And also for the certain, we also showed that some simu type rules can be optimal. So for this case, in case we don't have a dedicated server in station 1, we can show that this is, as you can see, is like the simu rule. Okay, it's the savings you get by having a completion in station 1 and here in station 2. So if you gain more from station 1, plus the fact that station 2 has a dedicated server as well, then the optimal policy goes only always to station 1. We have shown that, and you have an analogous result for station 2 when you don't have a dedicated server there. But again, you have this condition appearing. And for that, again, we found counterexamples when, if this is violated, if you have mu1 less than mu2, even if this still holds, then this is not the case. So you have this example here, and you see, first of all, the slope is very negative, but you have all this area here that the optimal policy assigns the flexible server to station 1. So now I'll move to the second part of my talk, when we assume non-preemptive policies. So here we assume that the server collaboration is not allowed at all, and also that the flexible server is slower than the dedicated server, which is reasonable. So with these assumptions, we have a version of the well-known slow server problem for 2 stages. Okay, the slow server, some of you have worked on that in the past. So in the slow server problem, you have a fast and a slow server. You always use the fast server, and you use the slow server when the number of jobs becomes large. That's the threshold, and you have a lot of different proofs. Lin and Kumar, they use policy iteration, Warren, sample path arguments, Stockbridge, martingales. So here used the individual optimality versus social optimality, and value iteration by Kuller. And lately, this model has gotten some attention. There's a work by Agun et al. With have server usage cost, and also the work of Oskan and Karufe will have unreliable servers, and they showed similar results. So here we formulate the problem. We have the problem with arrivals here. Now the state space now has to include the state of each server because they cannot preempt. So again, we have x1, x2, the number of jobs waiting, not those in service. I1 and I2 is the state of the fast server, which is 0 or 1 depending on whether they work or not. And then in the middle, this j is the state of the slow server, which can be take the values 0, 1, and 2, depending on when it's working or it's in the first or the second queue. Again, we use uniformization. We assume this without loss of generality, a discount factor beta. And Vn is the expected n-step discounted cost. And in the optimality equation, we just take the minimum of all possible actions that we can have. A1 is what to do with the fast server in station 1, the fast server in station 2, and AJ for the slow server. And Wn is the cost, the expected cost after we have taken this decision. We have these allocations. So here Y1 and Y2 are the number of jobs waiting after the decision is made, and A1, AJ, and A2 is the state of the servers after the decisions is made, and then you can calculate it here. And here I have the expression for Wn. You have the one-step cost and then the transitions. Okay. It's pretty simple, and W0 is 0, of course, because we are at the end of the horizon. So we want to show some properties of the optimal policy. Right from the beginning, we did not expect to show something for the slow server, because the slow server has 3 possible actions, and from experience, we couldn't do something like that with preemptive policies, it would be easier. So here it could be even worse, but at least we did get some properties for what to do with the fast servers. So theorem 2 says that the fast server in station 2 is always busy, which is reasonable. And you need this to show these two properties by value iteration. So f can be either Vn or Wn. And this first property compares, this term is when you have assigned the fast server to a job, and this when you have not assigned the fast server to a job, and you show that this is less than that, okay, you have less cost. So it's better for the fast server to work than be idle. And also you have to show what happens to prove that it's better to use the fast server than the slow server. So here you compare the terms of where here is an assignment to the fast server, here is the assignment to the slow server by these two here. And still you can show that by induction on n, going back and forth from Wn and Vn. And having shown that, we can, if we want to go to the first station, we can simplify the description of the state space. Because we know that the fast server always works, then x2 here is the number of jobs in queue plus the one being served by the fast station. Other than that, it's easy. So in the following theorem, we show, as before, that if it's more expensive to have jobs in the first queue, then at least the fast server there should always work. And here we show certain properties. These three properties here, they are different forms of the same property, where it says that it's better to have one less job in station 1 and one more in station 2. Okay. And these two properties are similar to the previous one, that they actually prove that the fast server in station 1 should work. Okay. Here it should work instead of being idle. Here it should work instead of having assigned the job to the slow server there. So that's all we had for our theoretical results. Okay. We did some numerical experiments with clearing systems to see what happens. What came out of that is, in case H1 is less than H2, where the fast server in station 1 can also idle, you have 6 possible allocations. We didn't find no case where you had the slow server working and the fast server not working. So it seems to be the case, at least. It reduces a little bit the search for the optimal policy, it seems. So either both work, or just the fast server works, or none of them works. And in the easier case, when both fast servers work, and you have 3 possible allocations for the slow server, we saw, as expected, that we have in general 2 thresholds that determine the optimal policy. And we have a numerical example here. Basically, the blue area is when the slow server does not work. The red area is when the slow server is assigned to station 1 because x1 becomes large. The green area where the slow server is assigned to station 2. So for example, if you go here, you have one switch point here, one here, or if you go the other way, one switch point here, one here, at most 2 switch points. So then we try to see what happens in some special cases when we have the slow server constrained to work in the same queue, cannot move some other queue. So we started with the easy case. If you have the slow server constrained to be in station 2, then in station 1 you have one server working all the time. So assuming a stable system, the departure from station 1 is Poisson with rate lambda, which feeds station 2. So we have actually a one-stage slow server problem. So the slow server in station 2 is used if the number of jobs there exceeds a threshold, which is independent of station 1. In doing some numerical experiments with clearing system, we observed the difference that when you have a clearing system, again, as we saw in this example, Again, we have a threshold, but that depends on the number of jobs in station 1. You see, if you have no jobs in station 1, this is probably the solution for the clearing system. Is that an 8 there? It should be a 9, or it's a typo here. And then when the number of jobs in station 1 becomes large, then we observe that this is steady here. And that's just an observation. If I go back one slide, there is an older result by Rosberg and Makowski that showed that if you have a system with arrivals and the arrival rate is small enough, then the optimal policy is the same with the optimal policy for the clearing system. And here we see here that this is not the case, because even if the arrival rate is very, very small, then the threshold is independent of the number of jobs in Q1. Whereas if we have a clearing system, by example, we saw that this depends on that. Maybe it has to do that with the fact that the arrival does not affect directly station 2. And then still, if we have the same problem with the slow server in station 2, but H1 less than H2, this is a more difficult problem. This is an extension of an early work by Rosberg, Professor Varayan, and Moran, where they had the same situation, but they didn't have the slow server. So they had one server in the first queue, a server in the second queue, and the decision was to whether to use the server in the first queue or not. And they had shown a non-decreasing switching curve then. And we did some numerical results, and we for clearing systems, okay, this is the switching curve for the server in station 1, which is again has this property being non-decreasing. And here for the slow server in station 2, we have this behavior as well, similar to the previous one. As I said, our numerical results are almost exclusively of a clearing system, but in this case, we did some few cases with arrivals, and we showed that in this, I don't have any figures here, but in the few cases, we showed that this threshold is independent of station 1. But of course, there are the examples are very few because it took a lot of time to run. You cannot have, they are not very, you cannot have much faith. We need to do more for that. Okay, so I guess how much? 5 minutes maybe?
10 minutes.
Okay, I don't think I need them. So again, now we switch to the case where we have the slow server in station 1. And this is, in this case, if H1 is greater than H2, we were hoping to show that the slow server there, the optimal policy for that is threshold type. And we made a serious attempt to use value iteration to show this property, but we were unsuccessful because we had a set of properties to prove, and every time every property created another one, and it was a never-ending process. So maybe there's some other way can be proven. So we did some numerical experiments I have to show here. Okay. In the red region, the slow server does not work. In the blue region, it works. So you see that if you fix X2, the number of jobs in Q2, you have a threshold here. But this threshold depends on X2. It's not the same. See, it starts at 4 and then becomes 5 and then 6, and at some point it becomes again steady. That doesn't change. So I guess it seems that when the number in station 2 is pretty large, then the two are independent, because this is the threshold that we would have if station 2 did not exist at all. But still, at least in my opinion, I didn't expect it. I thought that the threshold would be independent of station 2, because if you would like to minimize the cost in station 1, just send the jobs in station 2, because the server there would only work. But apparently that's not the case. Okay, and the last slide I'm going to show is that a case where H1 is less than H2, and again we have 3 regions here. So you have the, here that describes, because you have 2 servers, okay, you have the fast server and the slow server. It may be the case that nobody works. Okay. So in the blue region, both server works. In this intermediate green region, fast server works. And in the red region, here they work, here they are idle. Okay? I tell them the other way around. Again, in this case, we did not find a case where you can have only the slow server working and the fast server not working. Okay. So that's all the results we had. As a future work, this is ongoing work. We need certainly more numerical investigation for arrivals. Hopefully try to prove some of the conjectures. I think I'm not really optimistic about that. I think maybe with clearing systems we could be easier to prove some of the conjectures. And we plan to look at systems with one dedicated server only, which we haven't done so far. And that I conclude my talk. Happy birthday to Dimo. All the best for the years to come for you and Barbara. And thank you for your attention.
So I wanted to put there, but now I've been trained that you need an interrogative adverb, so I started experimenting. Why? Well, why is too philosophical, so I rejected that. What? What is kind of mundane and also